Hi, this is RX-78-2, a show where I take a look at some Gunpla and see how authentic they are. This time, we are looking at the RX-78-2 Gundam Earth Color. The Gundam Earth Color is based on the HGUC revival version of the RX-78-2. This version is released for the Gundam's 45th anniversary, and the original revival release was a decade ago, the 35th anniversary. It might seem like a cheap shot that Bandai does this for their 45th anniversary release, but at the same time, the HGUC revival of RX-78-2 pretty much grandfathered all Gunpla. Yeah, not limited to HG, but a lot of Gunpla that we see today. So I think it's appropriate that they have a version of it for the 45th anniversary. I'll be rating this kit based on saga, style, action, gimmick, and absence. Style is how much does the Gunpla resemble its anime, manga, games, or other media's counterparts. In case for the Earth Color RX-78-2, it is a special color version of RX-78-2, so there isn't actually an equivalent in other media, but as the RX-78-2 revival in HGUC, compared to the older HGUC that we had looked at, and the Best Mega Collection version, this is definitely a lot more modern, a lot more slim and stylish, as opposed to the very much 70s back in the day and the Starship Trooper power armor proportion. Having said that, what the revival did extremely well is how when you put the models in certain angle, or like this, yeah, it does looks like how Okawara illustrated. That is because, well, for one, Bandai have a lot better 3D modeling development techniques, at this point by the 35th anniversary, as opposed to the, what is it, 20th. So another 15 years has gone by, and Bandai definitely put their time in research and development. But it is also a demonstration of how Okawara, illustrate his mecha. They are not, he doesn't draw them like a blueprint as one-to-one as how you would look at them, but more like how you would say pan from the bottom up to the top. That's what Okawara is doing with his illustration. You're looking, like when you look at the feet, you're looking from the feet, pan up to the top, or the other way around. You focus on the head, see all the details, and then you pan down and see the feet. And yeah, the revival really captures that part really well. As for the Earth color, like the name implies, is basically how you would look at Earth from space. Mainly the blue and then a bit of green here and there for the 30% of landmass on the surface. As for sculpt and part separation, it is not too complicated, but it is very efficient. Like the head, for example, it is just a simple front-back clamshell, but since you would be looking at Gundam's heads mostly at the front angle, it doesn't really matter too much that there is a big gap right down the middle. The cameras are represented by stickers, not unusual, but the eyes are transparent yellow. That is the same for the original version, and Bandai do provide you with some shiny metallic stickers of the appropriate size sticking to the back, so the light piping is exceptionally well. This is definitely one of the best features of the revival. And then you can see how the transceiver and the underside of the eye are the same piece, so you got color separation for that, as opposed to how the original HGUC have no color separation. That is lovely. The side fans are still cast in the same color, the pale blue in this case. I just panel lined it like the Vulcan guns. The collar have a separate piece as usual, and then the chest is the standard clamshell. Again, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Vents, separate colors. We still got this block sculpture that we get from the original HGUC. It is nice. And the abdomen, this is slightly action territory, but yeah, the abdomen are separate pieces, unlike the original HGUC, which is just one piece of abdomen. Down to the skirts, at this point the V is still one color. Like I said, I don't mind it. I think a low vis is pretty cool. In this case it is in metallic green, so the V actually shines through fairly well. Side skirt is just a simple plate, nothing special really. And then the thigh, a bit of preview for the action territory again. The hip joints are separate from the thigh, so we'll see that in action, but yeah, that is a big improvement over the older HGUC. And unlike the older HGUC, the thigh is actually a single hollow tube with the inner frame going through it. Not something that Bandai always does these days, but it is definitely a technique that has influenced a lot of other designs over the years, and it does save some space on the sprue, which I think is what they, why they do it here. But yeah, even though it's a single tube, they still maintain the step sculpt for the thigh, so that's lovely. The knee joint field motor cap is a separate piece, so you don't need to color correct it with a panel liner. That is lovely. Unlike the original HGUC, we now have the knee pads and the rest of the shin in one piece at the front, just like the GM Custom. The back, no surprise here, a single gap of how the legs sandwich together. I do appreciate how they didn't force a separation line here, unlike the later models. I think it is better to leave that for the modelers to choose, like rather they want it to be a gapless or a natural armor segment separation. Ankles, separate ankles, just like the GM Custom, and then the foot. The ankle armor does not have the luxury for a separate cap, but that is for the benefit of the armor, as it wouldn't pop off like the GM Custom. That is good. And then the foot, yeah, just top piece and bottom piece. and foot sculpts in case we forgot. The holo sculpt in the Beyond Global pretty much came from here. This holo may be an eyesore for some people, but it looks really good on other angles when you're not looking directly on it. So I really like how they do it. Like, they want a holo somewhere that would be great, and this is a very good application. Back of the skirts, again having the separate color for the blocks, just like the original HGUC, and now we do have the Hyper Bazooka clamp. Like the original, it is an option, but I just put it on beforehand because I feel it belongs here. Backpack isn't so different. The nozzle is separate piece for just a crisp sculpt, and then the beam sabers on top. The arms are very interesting. Field motor cap, just like the knee, and then there is a internal frame for the forearm, and that includes this hardpoint socket. The sculpt make consideration of how it is assembled, so it looks like a natural armor segment. One piece bicep, but got a single sculpt line here just for added details, and then the shoulder itself also got some details. I think this line that going all the way across is just part of the mold line, but it looks natural enough as the sculpt. I mean, they didn't change the mold for this guy, but if they did, I would definitely make this line, this sculpt line, a lot more crisp, a lot more like a feature. But it's not, it's just a mold line that looks like a sculpt. And then top of the shoulder, we are no longer doing the down the middle split. We actually split near the natural armor segment line of the shoulder armor. And yeah, if you have seen this thing in promotion, you will notice that it looks very bare, and that is because I didn't put the sticker sheet on. It have the 45th anniversary logo. This 5-color and G symbol is basically the Gunpla Recycle Project iconographies, just like these pentagons. And then this is basically plastic forming a globe, and then RX-78-2. So yeah, you got this special sticker sheet. Again, the sticker decals, but yeah, I feel like they are too lovely to be put on the Gunpla. They wouldn't look bad. You can see them on the promotional videos, but I like my Gunpla as if they would be in their show or manga, so not too much of these markings if I can help it. So yeah, overall style-wise, the HGUC revival of RX-78-2 have been regarded as one of the best, if not the best, RX-78-2 Gunpla, just because how accessible, simple, action, we'll talk about action later, but yeah. Style-wise, no one can complain about the original HGUC revival RX-78-2 too much. And for the earth color, the only crime it really has is that it's just a plain recolor. Not that the recolor is bad, just that, you know, it is just one of many recolor of this kit. So I will give it an A, because there are categories incoming that definitely had some high scores. Next is action. Action isn't just the number of articulations, but also how useful those articulations are. The head, not too special, just standard forever HGUC double ball joint. Um, the revival sculpture definitely helped with how much RX-78-2 can look up and how much more natural it seems for the sculpt. And when looking down, it really looks like RX-78-2 is staring down. The body, we have ab crunch quite a lot because there is a ball joint, or there's a peg going into a ball to the cockpit. That's how you get a lot of ab crunch, which pretty much influenced every HG ever since. And then the second ab segment is the swivel. It is a bit of a ball joint of it in itself, but it's mostly for swivel, and then maybe 1 or 2 degree extra. Skirts, again, standard double ball that I cut open because it is a simple mod. So we got separate skirts articulations. The side skirt is now on a C-clip to a polycap. This C-clip polycap is actually pretty old, much like the transparent eyes. Is dating back to some very old HG, and it is not a bad system. You still got a bit of swivel to the side if you need it, which this Gundam do. But yeah, otherwise you can flip it up quite a bit, but not too much. Back skirt is static, pretty standard. And then the thigh. Yeah. Like I said, it grandfathered basically HG ever since its own release, and this is the modern level of articulations that we had been talking about. You know, all the way to 90, or looks more with the ab crunch, or you know, when you use the back plate as the reference point. To the side as well, it is a double swivel on the thigh, so if we get rid of the side skirt, it can kick all the way to the side. But you know, side skirt is in the way, and canonically the RX-78-2 isn't that athletic. 45 degree is about right. And yeah, we do have thigh rocker like the Scope Dog, or Scope Dog is like Gundam that has thigh rocker. And then the knee, it is a true double knee that basically the calves is the only thing blocking it from going all 180. The part separation here is pretty good. They are all sculpted one way or the other, so while it is a gap of the joints, it looks relatively natural for a robot anyway. We can see more of that on the ankle joint, but you know, that's what that armor piece is for. Foot is on a ball joint with the ankle is on a swivel. You can see the polycap here. You can go forward like this, or you can go all the way, tiptoeing. Shoulder joint going up for some really high angle. For the arm, not really canonical, but you know, it's dramatic. And then double elbow joint, again, not really canonically accurate, but it feels appropriate enough for Gundam that no one really complains. And so, Kung Fu fighting is super easy, barely an inconvenient for the HGUC RX-78-2 revival. And this is the big plus point or selling point of this kit. It is not just a aesthetically pleasing RX-78-2, but also one that looks great in action poses. Like, it looks like it is straight out of an anime shell, with the slightly exaggerated limbs proportion, but the body is also big enough that when you focus on it, the whole proportion doesn't, break like the other entries. So this kit is one of those places where style and action comes hand in hand, and I choose not to give it points in style because there's no other way to emphasize how great the action of this RX-78-2 is. And so it is an easy S for action. Next is Gimmick. Gimmick is the onboard weapon, optional weapons, and other functionalities of the mobile suit represented on the Gunpla. In case of the RX-78-2 revival, we have shown a lot of action that is not necessarily canonically correct, but definitely feels appropriate. And we have shown the bobbin guns. So let's start with the beam rifle. A pretty standard RX-78-2 beam rifle or Federation beam rifle in the 1 Year War. It does appears to be bigger in proportion to other counterparts, but I think it is a good ratio. It is a good size for a rifle instead of the more original 1979 long pistol that it was. We also get color separation for the optic. That is some grandpa privilege that even Char doesn't get. The optic can move so that Gundam can actually use it to cover up one of his eyes to get a co-witness, or open eye co-witness, that works too. Front grip is also movable, so can we do this without opening the hand? And we can. Yeah, you can fit the front grip into the standard hammer grip without opening up the hand. Although, it would be better if you play around with it and get it to the right place for a better look. But, this doesn't look too bad either, especially when you have the optic on the side. Muzzle, again, is its own sculpt. And the opening is an actual slot instead of just a shallow sculpt. That's great. The rest of the rifle is just a down to the middle split clamshell. Doesn't look too bad on most angle though. So while a lot more noticeable compared to say the HGUC, it is fine. Next is the Hyper Bazooka. It is pretty much the same as it was in the original HGUC, and you open up the standard hammer grip fist to fit it on, and it still have the swivel for Gundam to wield it effectively. The only change is that the guardrail on the top is now fixed. This is fine. We don't really need it to be, flipping around. And yeah, it clamps on the back clamp just as well. Next, let's go with the beam saber. Again, with the double joint and all the other articulations, it is super easy for Gundam to get in position to pull one out. And yeah, they do this weird two parts for the beam saber, presumably to get more details in, but I don't know. It does lead to some awkward situation like we just did. And this is also about the age where we get red beam saber blade instead of the traditional pink for Gundam. I guess this is just more standard color. Yeah, it works. Pretty tight. A combination of this being a fully sculpted hammer grip and a very deeply sculpted beam saber hilt, pretty much. Again, this sculpt is just, anyways. The shield pretty much mirror the color of the rest of the Gundam. Due to the way the metallic is mixed, you can see the reinforced rib and pegs on the inside, which is actually kind of cool, to be honest. Almost like there's some hidden sculpt in there. The marbling effects, it goes differently for different people. I have a relatively clean marbling effect. Some people might have it, rather apparent. Different people have different tastes. Some people really don't like how the metallic turns out. I, in general, think they are pretty cool. Back of the shield is sculpted. We don't really have the sliding mechanism, but that's okay. A very well sculpted separate piece for the attachment point, and the handling grip is actually movable, not just multiple positions. So if you really want Gundam to hold on the shield on the hard point, you can fairly easily. But I am a fossil myself. I like the shield on the back. As for the rest of the bits, we have a plain covering plate in case you don't want the hyper bazooka clamp, although you can leave it off like the EG. Well, EG's design is based on this, but and then open palm, fully sculpted. You can practically use these on any Federation or Federation-ish mobile suits and nobody will ask any questions. So very good additions. And yeah, no spare parts, no extra bits for the RX-78-2 revival version of color. Oh yeah, original sticker with the V in slightly different green. But, camera freaks out with the metallic stickers, so let's leave it off. So yeah, gimmick-wise, the RX-78-2 Earth Color, like is, parent mode, the revival version, have everything that is standard ever since the release of the movie. And I would say all of them are very well represented. There are some details missing here and there, but none of them are really bad for HG. It is very reasonable, and I would say it go to, a step beyond, like the optics and the beam saber with the extra hilt parts. Whether or not that is a detriment or a improvement, it is really a personal taste. So there's that. Last category is absence. Absence is kind of a constant when it comes to RX-78-2. Not only because it is, the most released version of Gunpla, but it is also the evolutions it have gone through all these years. As usual, we are missing some TV series weapon, like the Hyper Hammer, which is, a Morning Star, the napalm attachment to the beam rifle, socket hard points attachment point for the beam rifle to the side of the skirts, and the beam javelins. But since all of those are basically, well, I wouldn't say written out, but none of those have been standard war gear since day one. Back in the original mech collection, you just get beam saber, beam rifle, and the shield. Hyper Bazooka is really an addition added on with the movie, given how prevalent the weapon is for this TV series and the movie. And so I wouldn't really count this as an absence. It just happens to be an absence that usually plagues the RX-78-2. Also in this version, we are missing the core fighter, like the original HGUC release. It was just an additional gimmick for the original HGUC release. It wasn't done particularly well, just a welcome addition, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense until we get to the G-Armor set, where it has quite a lot of use and it is essential part of the whole Gundam multi-parts in combination concept. Not perfect in terms of not missing out anything, but it doesn't miss anything important for a representation of RX-78-2. So I will keep it at an A. So the verdict for the HGUC RX-78-2 Earth Color is A for style, S for action, S for gimmick, and A for absence. Overall, a welcome recoloring of the RX-78-2 HGUC revival. It is sort of an apology release because Bandai couldn't really get the RG 2.0 out the door in time. And the Mega Collection revival was kinda being dropped as the anniversary. Well, it's not dropped, it's still got the 45th anniversary halo on it, on the box, but it wasn't being used as the flagship. So, the flagship go to the RG 2.0. They kind of released this one to promote their Gunpla Runner recycling project, but also to kind of even out the lack of a release between the Bass Mecha Collection Revival and the RG 2.0. And I think it is an adequate release. I think the RX-78-2 Revival once again outdid its purpose, just, save the day for Bandai again. I guess I will talk about that later with all the RX-78-2 or RX-78 because I got a few G3s, in the video. But yeah, this kit, the original kit, was instrumental in pretty much keeping HGUC alive to a point. Like, HGUC is never really questioned to be phased out, but there was some point in time where its future was an uncertainty. And the original kit definitely kept that alive. This kit, being released 10 years later, still shows how strong, this thing is. It is another Bandai Black technology demonstration. Thanks for watching. See you next time.